There are a lot of approaches to doing architectural modeling, but I want to go over a few basics that highlight tools that I like to use in 3D Studio Max. First of all, I do have my project directory set up. I do want to change my units to feet and inches because all of my measurements for my house are done that way. So I could use decimal inches, but that's fine. Click OK. Now I'm just going to be working on one room. I'm going to do the kitchen of my house. I could bring in a blueprint to use as an image plane to reference, but I have all the measurements, so I'm just going to work from those. To get started, I'm going to put a floor down. It's a 10 by 10 foot room, so I'm going to go into primitives. I'm going to select the plane, and I'm just going to drag something out here. But I have the dimensions, so I'm going to put in 10 feet by 10 feet. I do want to check my grid setting here. I'm going to go into Tools, Grid and Snap Settings, and I see that I have a grid space every 10 inches. Let me make that 12 inches. Okay, so we have a 1 foot grid going here. And I want to check where this is. I'm going to kind of go by the numbers with a lot of these things. So I'm going to use the Move tool. And I'm going to right click. Now where it says Move, I'm going to open the little window here. It brings up this floating dialog box here. And I can see where this is. And just to keep things simple, I'm going to center this. Put it at 0, 0. I'm going to leave this open because this is going to be useful as I position things according to my measurements. So here we have a 10 foot by 10 foot floor. Now I actually want it to extend halfway under the walls. My walls are 5 inches thick. It's an older house, so it was built when 2x4s were actually 2 inches by 4 inches instead of like 1.5 by 3.5 inches. So the walls have 4-inch studs, 1/2 inch of drywall on the inside and outside, making a total of 5 inches. So I'm going to extend the length of this by 5 inches. So that it goes halfway through the wall, just to keep everything nice and tidy. Now for the walls, because the walls are 5 inches thick, I'm going to start by modeling. I'm going to do box modeling. I'm going to start with the cube, a box. So I'm going to start by dragging out a box here, but I want to be very precise. Type in the dimensions. This is going to be 5 inches by 5 inches, and the walls in my house are 9 feet tall, so I'm going to type that in. And I'm going to position this. So I'm going to take the Move tool, and I'm going to actually go in here and look at the corner, and I'm just going to move this over here so it's centered right on the edge of the floor. Remember, I made the floor extend halfway into the walls. And so here you see the position, and I could just go ahead and be perfect about this. 5 feet, 2.5 inches. Five foot, 2.5 inches. Okay, so I have it perfectly positioned there. Now the way I'm going to approach this is by mostly doing extrusions. So this room is going to be almost a cube. It's 10 feet by 10 feet by 9 feet. So to work on this, I'm going to work with faces. So if I select one of these faces, I can extrude. If I shift click or use the drop down menu here, I get this floating display where I can type in things. Like if I make this 10 feet, okay, so I have a 10-foot wall here. And then I want to extend this a little further. I'm going to shift click and add my 5 inches on there for the corner. So I have a solid wall. Now I'm going to make a wall that has a window in it. So I'm still in this box modeling mode where I'm extruding faces. And here I know from my dimensions that there's a window in the center. And this is a 10-foot wall, so basically there's 3 feet, well, 3.5 feet, then the 3-foot window, and then another 3.5 feet. So I'm going to extrude this. Move it off the side here a little bit. 3 feet, or I could just type 3.5 feet. Now I went in and extrude again and remembered the 3.5. I'm just going to change that to 3. And if I click plus here, it adds another 3 foot, but I'm going to change that to 3.5 to complete the wall. And then if I click plus, it adds another 3.5, but this is where I want my 5 inch. And I'm just going to click OK there. And so now I have a wall that's in sections. If I go in here, default shading, and show edged faces, you see I've got basically these edge loops here where I want to insert the window. Now I'm going to do a similar thing. I'm going to have a door over here. So selecting this, I'm again going to extrude. This is going to go 5 feet. And it put a second one in, completing the wall. But I'm going to change this to 30 inches, which is 2.5 feet. And when I click plus, it does another 2.5 feet, completing the wall. And I need the 5-inch corner. I undid that. I'm going to click plus here and then change that to 5 inches. The interface gets a little getting used to. I'm just going to click OK there. And you see I've got this centered over the edge of the floor. And here I'm going to close it. Now, an easy way to close this is just to, I'm going to control click, so I have these 2 faces selected. And I'm going to go up here and I'm going to bridge them together, finishing the room. Okay, now in terms of creating the windows and door, you notice that I'm being very careful not to create excess geometry. I have just what I need. I could go in and do, a swift loop, and this is all right if you're going to have windows the same height on all the walls. That's actually a fairly efficient way of doing that. But I don't want an edge loop going all the way around, so I'm going to be a little more specific. in the way I do this. I'm going to deselect the Swift loop. I just want to work with these edges here. So I'm going to go in, I'm still in edge mode, and I'm going to drag to select. And if I look on the back side, dragging, that selected the ones on the other side as well. And I'm just going to create an edge connecting these. To do that, I'm going to use the P Connect, Paint Connect. And as you see, if I hold down the Shift key, it'll connect the middle of the edges, which means it'll be straight across. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to use P Connect, hold down the Shift key, and that created an edge halfway through. It only did it on that outer surface, so I'm going to do the same thing here, Shift, drag. So now I have two edges. This is going to be the top of the window, but it's not in the right position. So to fix that, I am going to get out of P Connect. Or actually, you know, I could stay in P Connect and go ahead and create like another edge to be the bottom of the window. Just a little more efficient here. And now I'm going to get out of P Connect, deselect. Okay, so I want to position these edges exactly, so I'm going to select this, and I still have this move dialog over here. And I can see I had a 9-foot tall wall, so like the Z here is the height of the wall, and that edge is right now at 4.5 feet. I happen to know that I want this to be 88 inches from the floor, so I'm going to go ahead and just type that in and spin around the other side. Same thing, 88 inches. And this is from actual measurements for my house. Nothing magical about that. So the bottom edge of the window, looking at my notes here, is 38 inches up. So I'm going to type in 38 inches. Spin around. Same thing. Okay, so now I've defined the edges for the window. Now there are various ways to approach what we do next here. I could just delete these faces. Then you have these open edges here, which, you know, if you have a window unit that's going to go in here and you aren't going to see these edges, because, you know, we're seeing the backside of these polygons, which you normally don't want to do because they're invisible. It'd be all right to just do that. If you don't have a window unit you're putting in, you might actually want to have sides here. Now, I could build them by going into Edge, selecting this edge, Control, clicking just like this one, and bridging across them. And that worked fine. Another way of doing this would be to not delete the faces in the first place, and just use the bridge at this point, and that is a shortcut way of creating this opening and having sides on your windows. And that's my preferred method for that. For the door, same thing. I'm going to be in edge mode. Select these edges, inside and out. I'm going to use the P Connect, Shift, drag, shift drag, and then turn that off. Select that single edge. My doors are 82 inches tall, so I'm just going to type that in. "82 inches tall." And I can create an opening a similar way. Select the face, rotate it around, Control, click, bridge. Now doing it this way leaves this face down here. Now, you could just delete that, depending on what you have underneath. I want to have a threshold here, so I'm going to go ahead and extrude this a little bit. Give myself 1/2 inch. So that's 0.5 inches. Click OK. And I'm going to bevel this, not by beveling, I did an extrusion, but with that still selected, I can just go into scale and scale in just this one direction to give myself the bevel I wanted on here. Okay, so that's my room. I've got a door and a window, very precisely made to specific measurements, and without creating a lot of excess edges. Now, I also know that I'm going to be rendering, and I'm going to be seeing through the doorway, so I would probably also go in and create something outside here. Okay, so I wasn't being very precise with that. I just wanted to have something so that when I'm doing a render where I'm seeing, seeing through the door, that there's something outside that I am looking at. And I'd put a floor in there as well. Okay, those are some basics. I need a ceiling here. The ceiling could easily be created by selecting the floor. And this is the floor. Make sure things are named. Then if I take the move tool, shift, drag, that's a copy, and it's going to be 9 feet. So I don't want a bunch of things just called plain. I want to be able to look in the list over here and know what's what. So I have a floor, I have a ceiling, and I have walls.